Welcome back to Breaking the Norm. I know I've been away a while. I hope you haven't missed me too much. We've got some very cool guests lined up over the next few months. Starting with today's, Matt Jardine. I'll read you a note about the author from his recent book. Matt Jardine is an author, writer, athlete and teacher. He is the founder of Jardine Karate and has helped thousands of students discover their personal potential through his specially designed martial arts programs. He teaches in schools throughout London and at his Surrey venues. Matt writes for Jiu Jitsu Style magazine, Europe's largest Brazilian Jiu Jitsu magazine, and is the author of Mo and Lucy Choices, a top 10 rated PHSE resource for school students. He has practiced meditation and other Eastern arts for over 25 years and now lives in London with his wife and Jack Russell. He has 2 grown-up children. Matt is a very interesting guy. In this podcast, we largely cover the lessons he learned on the 88 Temple Pilgrimage, which is the basis for his book, The Hardest Path. We cover how Matt approaches life in general, his past. He used to be a tennis player and tennis coach, and how he progressed into what he's doing now and his future plans. So I hope you enjoy the listen. So, hi, Matt. Thanks for coming on today.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me.
So, me and Matt first met through a mutual friend, Mike Summers, who runs Break now at a jiu-jitsu competition, because you used to write for Jiu-Jitsu Style, didn't you, Matt?
Yep, for almost 4 years, actually.
Well, that's sadly ended now, but it was quite a big deal in the jiu-jitsu community. So you're obviously an author, a writer. You've done a lot of things. How did you get into what you're doing now? So all the way back, what is your background?
So my background is nothing like what it is now. I actually, from as early as 12, I wanted to play professional tennis, actually. And that's all I did. I just wanted to win Wimbledon. So I left school. So that's what I did. I didn't do games. I did extra tennis, and that's what I was being prepared for. And then when I left school, I went straight to full-time tennis academy at Bisham Abbey. And that is it. It was just all I had in my mind until I went over to Florida to Nick Bollettieri's place, and I was training there. He was the coach of Monica Seles and Andre Agassi in those days.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted to do. But I was a good tennis player, but I wasn't the greatest tennis player. So I was kind of like what they call satellite level. So you've got the top guys and then you've got the ones under. So we can all, okay. I often say this, I can hit the ball as well as Roger Federer 15% of the time. Whereas you can do it all the rest and in front of a grandstand of people. So what I found was at the lower levels, you're having to fund a little bit like jiu-jitsu actually. At the lower level, you're funding your own careers, right? Because you've still got to pay for your flights and there's still entry fees, all that sort of stuff. So often to fund my stuff, I'd coach. Because the big guys would get a sponsor, Adidas or whoever would take them on, and I would pay for my own career, and I would then coach. And I found actually that I just fell in love with teaching. Teaching was then very quickly my thing, more so than a pro career, which is good because I wasn't that good. I was all right. And then I got more and more toward coaching until I found out actually that it's just amazing. I love teaching. That was kind of my life's career from then on. And everything I've done since then are actually only different levels of teaching, whether it be the books, whether it be my martial arts school, they're just different vehicles for teaching. Yeah, so I was a tennis pro.
So you got into teaching the side of tennis, but you teach a variety of things. So how did you move into that then?
So so when I came back from Florida, actually my ex-wife came pregnant with my first child, so I needed some money. So India, so that was my daughter. I've got 2 kids, India and Sunny, and I needed to kind of make some money. So I got a job teaching at the Harbour Club. The Harbour Club was where Princess Diana, it was the haunt of the sort of 80s, 90s where all the famous people were. And I was their tennis coach. I was William and Harry's tennis coach. And Diana's. It was crazy. And I was like 22 or 23. So it was a completely different world there. So I got into coaching. I was there sort of 12 years or so. But through the backdrop, I've always been a bit of a scrapper. And I've always been interested in martial arts. I've just really enjoy it. Probably enjoyed that more than team sports. I love the kind of physicality. I like to fight. I'm not talking about street fighting. I like the challenge of fighting, like jiu-jitsu now. Yeah. So it was always the backdrop until there was a point where I've been in tennis since I was about 12. And I thought, actually, I want to do something else. I want to do something else. So I started then teaching martial art, whether it's karate at that point, karate classes alongside my tennis. And then there was an interim gap because for my martial arts, I wanted to start understanding the deeper side. So I started studying a thing called shiatsu, which is Japanese acupressure. So you know all the pressure points and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So going back, you know acupuncture, the needles?
Yes.
Shiatsu is the same, but without the needles. It's of a traditional, it's a Japanese art, but it's based on traditional Chinese medicine. Anyway, I started studying that to really fill out my martial arts understanding so that I could go through and look at the pressure points and if they worked and if it was just a nonsense. And then I ended up opening 2 shiatsu clinics and working with the head injured. Actually, I worked in a traditional GP's practice with people with cancer and stuff. Not that shiatsu was going to fix them. They were having their traditional treatments and they'd have shiatsu as well. So I had a sort of, there was about 5 or 6 years where I was finishing up my tennis teaching career, if you like. Then I was involved in martial arts because I was doing that. That was my sort of hobby, then into teaching and doing shiatsu as well. So, love it.
So martial arts, you've got your Jardine Karate, and you're into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as well.
Yes.
Quite good at that as well. So is this what led you into the hardest path, that route?
Yeah, as I said earlier, all of the things that I've done, when I look at them, they're vehicles, I think, for teaching bigger things. So like in my tennis days, I taught tennis, but I would often reference martial arts or bigger lessons. Do you know what I mean? Like I used to say to clients, listen, I can tell how you live your life by how you play a set of tennis. Because when you're fully engaged in a physical activity, you're kind of mentally naked. There's no it's like being drunk. You can see the real person. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I always thought that tennis was just a vehicle for kind of self-growth. Every time they improved the skill, you could see something in them going, oh yeah, I got it. I couldn't serve last week. Now I can serve this week. So it was just a medium of growth. But it's limited. Sports are limited like that. There's only a certain, they're not that profound, sports. But martial arts, of course, always sold themselves on this mind, body, spirit potential, right? So I was naturally drawn. My next vehicle then was martial arts. As it turns out, that's a little bit of a myth. I think they sell their mind, body development a little bit more than they really are. If you look for it, it's there, but development in martial arts isn't a default position. You go to a school where they're not interested in that at all, then your ego won't dissolve one bit. In fact, arguably, it might grow.
I've seen that a lot recently. Everyone tries to say, jiu-jitsu or MMA or whatever gets rid of your ego. There are some of the biggest the most egotistical people I've ever met in my life. Sure. It doesn't always get through. The other thing I was going to say was, we probably see it a lot in jiu-jitsu, and I know swimmers see it in their sport, and everyone thinks that their sport is almost like a way to get out, like a form of meditation. When you're doing it perfectly, you don't think of anything else. And I know when I read your book, that was a thing. You were nailing the serves, and then suddenly you realized you were nailing the serves, and then it all went to pot, because before you weren't thinking about it. I suppose it's almost like a state of meditation, or like you're in the zone. I think that's something you can get from almost any sport, isn't it? But each sport seems to think it's exclusive to them. But yeah,
I think anything that you are fully immersed and engaged in is a meditative experience, right?
Yeah.
But it only lasts as long as you're engaged in it. It's it's twofold, isn't it? You think, well, I'm fully involved until I realize I'm fully involved, and then I step out. So actually, my experience with meditation, I'm not sure these are linked. They may be linked. I'll tell you about them. When I was about 14 or 15, when I came back from training once at one of the David Lloyd centres, I got beaten up getting off a bus. Anyway, it smashed my nose. I had 18 stitches, and we ended up in court. No, not me. I didn't do anything, but in youth court, etc. It was it was a difficult time. It's not fun because there's no fight involved. There were 3 guys, smashed me in the nose. Those sovereign rings, smashed me in the nose, and ran off. So you're sort of left a bit like, if you can fight back, then you get a kicking, but some of you has been assuaged. You kind of have a little bit of cathartic experience. When it's a hit and go, you're sort of lost a bit. Anyway, my dad still says to this day that my tennis career started to go downhill then, mentally. And I I don't know if I'm not sure. I think I just had a pretty bad backhand and a pretty average point. But anyway, I'll take that excuse. But my point was, for quite a long time, through my 15 to sort of 17, 18, 19, I was quite stroppy, to the point, and I'm fairly ashamed to admit this, where I carried a knife in my car, right? Where they said, this was from 17, until my brother one time saw it and was like, what are you doing, man? And I realized something kind of had to change. Anyway, I went to, I've always been interested in kind of the Eastern arts and meditation and stuff. And I went to a place called Rigpa, which is a Tibetan Buddhist center. It's in Caledonian Road. I don't know if it's still there. This was, it's 30 odd years ago. And I started studying meditation, formally, Buddhist meditation. I call it's meditation, whether it's Buddhist or Zen, or it doesn't really matter. And I've been doing it every day, day and night, ever since. And because of the regular practice, I've started to realize how many things we do in life are actually meditation, whether it be jiu-jitsu or, as you say, swimming. It doesn't matter. That being immersed in something is incredibly, incredibly healing. But not a lot of people pay it much attention, except now it's becoming, the whole mindfulness genre and all that sort of stuff. People are thinking about it. But more and more people are interested. I'm asked tons about meditation. Well, and I think it's a vital skill.
It is. Well, I've started trying recently with, I know it's probably a bit weak, but the Sam Harris Waking Up app, I've been trying to use it.
Yeah.
And they'll talk you through meditation. But it's crazy how little you can focus. You're meant to be focusing, and then somehow you're thinking about some random, you don't even know you got to that thought. And you're like, oh God, I'm meant to be meditating. You totally forget. And I think it's a skill that is going to take a lot of practice, because you don't realize how often your mind just flips from thing to thing.
Well, here's the thing, and you'll know this as an athlete, right? The temptation is, and I used to, because I'm a bit of a compulsive athlete, which I think if you competed at a high level, I think you have to be a bit crazy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you genuinely want to control stuff. So your first thing to do when I started meditation was to make everything line up. But it's actually completely the other way. You actually, rather than get rid of the thoughts, which is completely impossible as you're realizing, what happens is you become what they call the witness. So you're just so imagine we're in the cinema.
Yeah.
And we're watching the film. The witness is the person watching the film. You don't believe that you're whoever the character is. You're just watching and enjoying. And that, if when we start to enter meditation with that view, that's when the thoughts just settle. When I teach meditation in schools and in courses, I teach it in corporates and stuff like that. I do this thing called the meditation jar, where we've got a jar, right, of muddy water.
I've seen this. It's cool.
Have you seen it? So, but that is.
Explain it for the listeners, though.
Okay, so there's a jar, just a jar of clear water, and at the bottom is mud, right? So what I do, because it's the easiest symbolic way to teach this, I shake it like those old snow globes, right? So imagine it's a muddy snow globe, and then I just put it down there. So there's no instruction. I just tell them to watch what I'm doing, right? And I put this jar down that's now filled with mud and all that sort of stuff, and I just leave it. And actually, as they sit and watch it, the mud obviously starts to settle. But it's twofold. It's symbolically showing them what happens to the brain when you leave it alone, but also at the same time, by watching this meditation jar, itself is something that ties them in. And at the end, we just go, there is your meditation. Meditation is not something to put on your to-do list. It's something to put on your to-don't list. And it took me ages to get that. I always would try and fix it. I read every book on neuropsychology of this and meditation to understand it, until I realized, oh no, that's actually not the point. It's to do nothing. And then Zen, it's called sitting still, doing nothing. It took me about 20 years to get that. I'm not that bright. Very slow learner.
Cool. So I'm sure we're going to get back to this now with the walk, but so the hardest path was 88 temple pilgrimage in, is it Shikoku? I'm not sure.
Yeah, fourth island of Japan, yeah.
So how did you decide to do it?
So I love bringing up children, love being a parent, of course, but once you're fully immersed in stuff and you're busy, there's always a kind of a nag, or there was a nag in my head that there was something more to life. I've always been a bit of a big picture thinker. I like the big questions of life. Why are we here? Where are we going? Et cetera, et cetera. I don't spend my whole life thinking about that, but I find that fascinating. And the day-to-day stuff is fine, but it's all a bit like, whatever. I've always been thinking, anyway, I finished a book by Paulo Coelho, who's the author of The Alchemist. It's a kind of best-selling book. He's Brazilian, actually. I think he's Brazilian. Very famous writer. He kind of sits in that spiritual new age genre, but you could equally find him in... he doesn't just sit there. He's a very well-known author. Anyway, his first book was called The Pilgrimage, where he walked the famous Santiago, the Camino, right? The pilgrimage, France, Spain. Anyway, I read that and I was really inspired by that. And I thought, I'm going to do a pilgrimage. It's like a spiritual journey. This is a find yourself journey. I didn't want to do his one that had been done. I had those links and ties to Japan through the karate. So I just thought, right, I'm going to do it. And I literally, within 12 hours of reading the book, had booked the flight and gone. It was just one of those. It was one of those weird kind of everyone left going, well, where's he gone then? And the idea was to see what I could reveal about myself during this pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is supposed to be these places where you kind of you find yourself, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, so I had no idea about it. I looked a small paragraph up in one of the Lonely Planet guidebooks and went, and that was it. The rest I kind of sort of thought, well, just see what happens. I'll trust the heavens. And if there aren't any, well, no, it will go wrong.
I like that approach.
There was no planning. It was just, let's throw myself over and just see what comes of it. Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it sometimes, because otherwise you get too many people or too many thoughts coming in that are negative, and you end up sitting on the fence and wasting time and not doing it. I find that a lot with business as well. Like, I know you've got to do your due diligence, but sometimes you've just got to do it.
I am the bank manager's worst nightmare because I am just like you said. I do business like I do I don't like the term spiritual work. We need a better word, but for the sake of a better word, I do my business the same. It's based on, would I do this if I had billions of pounds? So that means I don't need the money to do it. If that's a yes, I move forward to stage 2. Do I know how to do it? Yes or no, which moves me forward to stage 3, start and do it and learn on the move. And that's it. And they look at me with this business plan. I go, honestly, it will work. Just chill, you relax, and I'll back myself. And it really is. And so far, it seems to have worked. And I have this massive belief from experience, not just of myself, but others, that it absolutely works like that every time. That when you you're a classic example. When you throw yourself over the edge, something catches you. I don't know what that something is, right? That's not up to me to say. People call it different things. But there is something that kind of, rewards the brave, courageous, stupid. And it works.
Mixture of most of the time.
Yeah, it works enough times to be something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I always find it's better to, even if it does fail, it's better to know that it was going to fail than just sit there and never do it anyway.
But also, when it fails, though, you have a reference point, right?
Yeah.
How old are you?
23, just turned this.
Okay, so do you know, you might be too young. I don't say that patronisingly, but when I grew up, Battleship. You remember the game Battleship?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's it, because I don't know if it's still around, because of course I'm 46 now. So battleships, right? You can only win battleships, can't you, by firstly losing.
Yeah.
Because you actually put all the red pegs in where the battleship isn't to find the white pegs. So actually my view, and I'm not saying this is some kind of life coach, voodoo, weird self-help thing, because I can't be doing all that nonsense. But the truth is, you literally have to have stuff go wrong before you can have a reference point to understand how to go right. You can't go straight in. And jiu-jitsu is a classic example of that. Classic example. Look at all the white belts that come in the gym, right? They're all trying to avoid the mistakes.
Yep.
And it's only when they've done 50, 60, 70 mistakes they realize, oh, okay, because the brain is piecing together reference points. It doesn't learn any other way. It has to have had an experience of something to have its reference point the other way. Then you know if I go left, he's going to catch me. And at business, life, relation, it's all the same, man. It's all jiu-jitsu, I think. Yeah, you got to fall flat.
I like that. So, to the book, you decided to fly out. You've gone. Talk us about what happened when you got there.
So so even now, not many Japanese do it. It's so rare. It's a old holy pilgrimage. And so this is how naive I was. I'm on the plane getting ready to land at Kansai in Tokyo, saying, literally, I have no idea. Do you know where Shikoku is? With the waitress looking going, who are you? What are you doing? You're on a plane asking me where that's one of those directions. It's like standing in London and go, excuse me, could you point me to the high street in Wales? I mean, it really is that naive. So I get off and I don't even know how to get to Shikoku. So Japan it's a number of islands, but it's 4 main islands and Shikoku is its 4th largest. So mate, I get off the plane, haven't got a clue. And so I just managed to blag my way around, I don't even know how, a number of taxis, a number of places, a number of people looking at me going, he's crazy, until I end up at 2:30 in the morning on Shikoku, right? At the first temple where this cab guy, I sort of, with my sketchy Japanese, managed to tell him what I was doing. And he was like, you're going to walk the whole thing? I went, yeah. He said, no one does that anymore. I went, well, you know, can it be that bad?
Crazy English man.
So he drops me, yeah, exactly. So he drops me at the first temple, and it literally began like that. It was the most unplanned thing I've ever done, which is why I think it was so life-changing, because you are literally trusting the heavens. It's like opening the window and jumping straight out. You're in someone or something else's hands. And then you just, and it's a circumference of the island. So you can only walk straight, right? We just walk off the edge. And it ends up being 1,400 kilometers. So I had to walk out. And then the other thing, I decided there was a subtext to this, that I wanted to prove, well, I wanted to do the journey as a spiritual journey, but I wanted to prove that time and money weren't actually real. They were man-made or human-made. Because I was always surrounded by people who were telling me why, if they had more time, they would do whatever hobby, list the hobby, right? Or if they had more money, they just don't do anything, right? So I was like, I can't believe time and money need to stand in our way. My view was that if you don't have the time and money, do it anyway and it will work.
Yeah.
And if I could do Shikoku, so no one ever does this anymore, right? Not even the Japanese. But if I could do what usually takes 2 to 3 months in 30 days with no money, I had 300 quid, which is nothing for 30 days, then there's another system in play apart from time and money, right? So the next person who said, I can't do it because I've got no time, I was just going to punch them and go, no, it's actually wrong. But of course, that needed to be proved. I'm standing on Temple 1 with an idea, having no idea if that's true. And actually the depressing truth would be that if time and money is actually our limiter, that's quite a painful reality, because that's we shafted.
It's validating people's excuses.
Yeah. And you think, oh, okay, well, stay in the 9 to 5 because I haven't got a better option. So it was all the way through. You're going, wow, is time and money really? And it was the journey and the story of that. So it ended up being 1,400 kilometers in 30 days, which is about a marathon and a half every day. And then you just sleep whatever comes. With a budget of 300, you haven't got any money. You're sleeping either under benches. If sometimes I didn't eat for 3 or 4 days, so I could afford a room in a ryokan. Sometimes people would take you in, a monk would take you in, but you were in life's hands, and it's magic.
That is what I found interesting in the book. Like you'd be sleeping anywhere you could find, and I know at the one stage you slept up against, wasn't it a tumble dryer somebody let you sleep against, or a washing machine?
Oh, it's heaven.
To keep
and
warm.
You never realise such, ordinarily you'd be like, you're kidding me. But this guy, he let me in. So, because the other thing as well about pilgrimage, they do revere, they're called Henro and pilgrims. And because the idea of if you're trying to improve yourself, the idea is you're walking for kind of world peace, really. And they're very, very grateful. They revere pilgrims, especially, I'm the only Westerner to have done it in 30 days. Other Westerns have done it, but only have done it in the kind of ridiculous fashion I did. So they're very respectful of it. And this guy, you get all these great things that you have in your life, but when he gets taken away, suddenly he opens up and says, listen, you can stay in here, man. Which is essentially a laundrette with a tumble dryer that still had a bit of heat in. So I had all the socks and stuff on me with a little bit of warmth. But it was like heaven. I wouldn't have been anywhere else. I had nothing and everything all at the same time. It was like, wow, you don't need anything. And then it happened that the morning I left, because to get round all the walking in a day, I'd have to be up super early, like 4:30 or so. So I was always up for daybreak. And I was greeted that morning by the most unbelievable sunrise. You just think, yeah, what do you need to be really, really happy? This has been stressful. The walk has been stressful, but everything and nothing all in the same day is amazing.
Yeah, probably the happiest you've been asleep next to a tumble dryer and just wake up to a sunrise.
You're absolutely right. It's true. It's really true.
So the purpose of the journey was, I suppose, to get into that meditative state or to reveal life lessons. You met a few people along the way that helped with that, didn't you? I read from the book. So I don't want to mispronounce his name, but Hajime, that's it. So can you tell us about Hajime?
So Hajime, so this is an interesting. So Hajime, interestingly, actually means in Japanese beginning, right? So if you hear in a karate dojo, you'll hear Hajime, which means to begin or start. So he literally, his name translates as Mr. Beginnings. And this is a really weird thing, okay? This is a bit Harry Potterish, and I absolutely swear this is all true. So I was I can't remember the temple number, I'll say 4, I can't remember unless I go back, right? And I was there, and I'd hardly done anything at this pilgrimage. I didn't know why I was there. I was in this weird kind of find myself, whatever that means, but I didn't know anything else about it, right? So I was just going, I don't know, so I'm just walking, and already my feet were hurting. And then this guy's behind me, right? Hajime-san taps me on the shoulder and basically asks me what I'm doing, and I sort of tell him. And he sort of orders me with him, right? Like just this little Japanese guy with he's missing a tooth. And he takes me with him. And I end up walking with him for 2 days where I become his pilgrim apprentice, where he teaches me the real heart of it. Because as it turns out, there's a thing called the Hanya Shingo, which is the Heart Sutra, which you're supposed to chant at each temple, and that takes it to a completely different level. He tells me how to use the beads. He tells me where to go. He even tells me to change my shoes. I threw out my really super expensive walking boots for trainers, which was the best thing that ever happened. And it was like it's like he popped into my life, gave me this kind of mini apprenticeship, and then he popped back out.
He's like your pilgrimage, Mr. Miyagi.
Honestly, it really was. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, I was like, you're kidding me. It really was. But it turns out, as much as I could translate that, I don't know how many years before, but he lost his family in a car accident, right? And he survived. And they died. And that he has been walking the 88 Temple pilgrimage as a henro, as a pilgrim, ever since. He just walks it essentially as it's called a henro, but for all intents and purposes, a homeless man. He walks it and then just keeps walking it again. And
just constantly. So do the locals help him, like take him in, I suppose? And
I don't think they do, because I was with him and we were in bus shelters. Sometimes the temples do have a thing. Oh, what's it called? I can't remember the name of it. Is it Chateau? I can't remember. But they have a little shed, basically, in their temples, and there's a little bit of room. So Henro can go in there. And honestly, it's not much more than the bus shelter. It may be in a temple, but it's about the same. But that's all they do. And he'll, occasionally he'll kind of, not beg, but he'll, have his bowl for alms. And then he just, I don't know how he does it. Again, it's like he just constantly walks. But people know him because he'll hook up and he'll go past people and they're like, oh, Hajime-san. But this guy, it really was. It was like Mr. Miyagi. And he kind of came into my life, taught me the most profound things that made me really experience the journey to another level, because I think I would have only accessed it at one level. And this Heart Sutra thing is absolutely key. There's a saying that, because at each temple you chant this sutra, and there's a saying that enlightenment comes when you chant the sutra 1,000,000 times. I don't know if that's true, but I've done it every day ever since. And then he came, and then he went, like it was meant to be. But the journey was filled with that sort of stuff. Oh, wow, crazy.
There's one bit in there, universe requesting, isn't it, we're talking about?
Yeah.
And you're walking along. Well, I'll let you tell the story. It's about the cheesecake, was it? I think?
That strawberry cheesecake.
Strawberry cheesecake, yeah.
So you've seen all this in The Secret, and even Conor McGregor's referenced it, and it's a bit new agey and a bit kind of. So I have a bit of a problem with the new age genre, because it can be a bit sickly, a bit patronising, and a bit like, I'm going to teach you how to live your life. And you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're as faulty as me. But that isn't to say some of the stuff isn't good. It's just how it gets translated. Anyway, so this universe requesting is ask and it is given. You know, we've been doing it forever.
Prayer law of attraction type thing, is it?
It is exact law of attraction. Anyway, so I decided to test this. So I thought, well, this is another thing I'll test, see if it's a lot of old nonsense. So the idea was that if I'm out here on this spiritual journey, I'm as close as you can get to the things which give you your stuff, right? There's no filters here. I've got no stress. I'm not taking the kids to school. It's just me and the heavens, right? And the open sky, and I'm walking. So I start playing with this idea that, right, choose something and see if it manifests. Fine, right? Pretty easy idea. So I started with things like just asking for a loo, because you're walking, you're out in the things and you really need the loo, and suddenly, and it would just pitch up and you go, well, that, you know, it's still an island. It's, and then I'd start progressively playing with more ridiculous things to see if it worked. Because for the first, when it happens at first, you kind of, your conscious brain goes, oh, it's just coincidence. You know what I mean? There's loads of loos around Japan. So anyway, I did a series of ones. So I went, right, let's just do ridiculous stuff. I am in the middle of a bamboo grove, right? I'm miles away from anywhere. So if it works, strawberry cheesecake. It was just the most ridiculous thing I could think of. I don't know, strawberry cheesecake. No, it's barely, it's not something you really see in Japan. And then again, this is honest to God true. So I leave that area, I walk on, kind of forgetting about it really, not expecting it to manifest. The bamboo grove opens and I come out it opens out into a kind of little village, into a road, which, you know, I didn't know if that was going to happen, didn't know if it wasn't going to happen, no idea, but opens into a little road. And I start walking and there's this little shop on its own with a yellow roof. The yellow seems to be because I just absolutely vividly see this yellow roof. You know, I look in the window and there on one of those cake stands is, and this is absolutely true, is one slice of strawberry cheesecake. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It actually freaked me out slightly because you started to get this real indicator that ask and it is given is actually true. It's a weird system. And then I kept playing with it from, you know, various things as we went on. I stopped doing it in the end because I actually frightened myself slightly and just got a bit nervous. And then but I started to think, wow, we do get kind of what we asked for. Which is sort of what's led to my next book. I'm not promoting my book. I'm just saying this is relevant.
We'll talk about it anyway. Yeah.
Because when I came back with these lessons, I thought that's all very well on a spiritual journey, all these great insights that I had, but they're no good if you don't bring them back to the high street and they help the normal person, right? It's, you know. So I started to go, what is the thing I hear most people complain about in BJJ changing rooms are their work. You know, their job, right? Yeah. So if you ask 7 out of 10 people, if you said to them, listen, if I gave you £1 million or whatever is a lot of money, for some people that's not a lot of money, so for some people it is, but a lot of money, right? Million, would you do your work tomorrow? And from my own stats, 7 out of 10 people go, absolutely not. They would do whatever, you know, they'd list it. Like, not a podcast, right? So then I'm thinking, so most people then are not living their ideal work lives. They're working to pay the bills. So I'm thinking, how can I take these lessons? And I've seen real magic there on the 88 Temple Pilgrimage, right? Genuine stuff. How then can I bring that, give it to the normal person, just as we all are, and it make a difference? And that's what the next book is about. It's called The Buddhist Millionaire, how you take the lessons from the 88 to basically carve work that you absolutely love, work that you want to get out of bed for, but also that pays the bills. Because there's a bit of a myth, isn't there, that you're either doing work that you love and you're broke, like the creative artist, or you're making a lot of money, but you kind of hate it.
Yeah.
Can there be a middle way? And that's what this is investigating.
There's a Alan Watts video, which I frequently
love Alan Watts.
I was frequently listening to it and I was thinking of, basically throughout my education, there's always been a stage at every level, even throughout university, where I thought, I don't want to do this. And I listened to Alan Watts and he basically persuades me to quit. And then you'll probably have a chat with someone else who says, better stay. There's a bit in there and it's, no matter what you choose to do, if you commit yourself to it fully and get good enough at it, you're going to make an income, because there's that many people on the planet that at least somebody is bound to have the same interests, same hobby, same passion as you. And if you get good enough at it, they're going to pay you for it. Oh. So I suppose with jiu-jitsu, if you get good enough at it, you're going to get paid to teach sessions, have private sessions, etc. Writing a book, people are going to read your books, and it goes. anything you can think of. Even I was talking to someone the other day and on about they wanted to do a beauty therapy course, and everyone was like, "Oh, don't do that." But I was like, "Well, if you get good enough at beauty therapy, then you can make a lot of money. You go on film sets, you can do. Like, if you just
Absolutely.
commit to it." But I think there's a lot of people that don't really see it that way. They want you to go sit in your office cubicle, work there until you basically die, or have a 10-year pension where you're too ill to spend any of it. But I think
it's absolutely right. We are living now. This is not an attack on our parents at all, right? Mine, yours, anybody's. But because of the nature of how we learn, we are kind of an open book. So the only influence we get are our educators, our primary carers, parents, and our direct environment, up to 7, 8, whatever, right? So therefore, our new habits that we run into our lives are basically our parents' fears. When you think about that, most of our underlying structural beliefs are not ours.
Yeah.
Money doesn't grow on trees. I don't know, save pennies for a rainy day. When you investigate the majority of our structural beliefs, because they came at a time when we couldn't discern as children, which is fair enough, we are living our parents' ideas.
And they're probably living their parents' ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Where they're living theirs. Which is essentially a passed down habit. And like any habit, when you're changing a physical habit in sport, it takes effort. So people wonder why their lives don't change. Well, they haven't put in the conscious effort to change those patterns, which is why meditation is quite good, because you get to see what you think rather than just habitually react to it. So it's up to us then to create new systems of belief. So, for example, I had that classic one, I'm 46. So my generation would classically say money doesn't grow on trees, it doesn't come easy, you've got to work hard for your money. I actively looked to challenge that. Now, it took a pilgrimage and a lot of experiences to challenge that, but I challenged it. I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe money is hard to come by. I believe that you do what you love and money sticks to it. Just, like you said, I don't know the mechanics of that. I don't even care. But what I've seen is that when you do what you love, there is something financially attractive to it. So it becomes a new belief.
You've got to put the effort in, though, haven't you? But I see a lot of I see some posts sometimes. Somebody will share a video, whether it's Joe Rogan or share a video or something, and you'll have everyone comment underneath, "Oh, it's all right for you. You haven't got to work a full-time job." But the thing that I remember, that as a quote I remember, I'm probably getting it wrong, but every single person on this planet, every successful person you can think of, still had 24 hours in the day. So I was reading a book a while ago, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he first went to America, he was laying driveways and things before he made it. But so in his spare time, he was training, still being a bodybuilder, then laying driveways, doing building work, so just get up a couple of hours earlier or things like that. But
I completely agree. And you can't, again, I always think of this about, you see this a lot when I'm a black belt in karate, so not jiu-jitsu, so I'm talking to that from a karate point of view. When you get to black belt, right? When you're as a white belt looking at a black belt, you think there's some magical mystery, right? Don't you look up to them? And we do this even jiu-jitsu, even looking up at a purple belt or a brown belt, you go, oh, ooh, there's something different. And then you get to the belt eventually that you once went, oh, they're magic. And you realize, there is literally nothing different. There's more experience that you've accumulated. And I call that other side of the fence. So you're on this side of the fence with a bunch of references and experiences. And when you look over the other side of the fence, you think it's something different or the grass is greener. And when you get over there, you realize it's just an accumulation of new experiences that you have to have gone through: the white, the blue, the purple, the brown. And actually, there is no magic. And that is the magic. That the fact that success is unbelievably predictable. You do the work, you keep going, you get back up and do it again, and despite your best efforts to be rubbish, you will succeed. And I love that idea.
I like that too. So I want to get back to the book. I went off track then, but so what was your biggest setback on? I don't want to give away the whole content of the book because I think you guys should go and buy it. It's on Amazon, by the way. I'll put links after. What was your biggest setback?
Oh man, so there are a number of levels. So first, just physical. 1,400 kilometers. As I say, you're doing a marathon and a half a day. It's physically very demanding, and sometimes you're having to walk through the night as well. So you're walking your marathon and a half a day. Then if you have to do a night walk, you're doing the same again. Now, of course, you've got the same for the next day to catch up. That's sometimes if you weren't getting through the hours. That was just physically, mentally exhausting. The other thing as well, when you, and Hajime said this, he said he didn't fear the cold or the wind, but the rain. He said the rain will kill you. If you get wet and damp, it's what leads to chest infections. So when you're, I think we made a small documentary of it that's on YouTube, but somewhere I'm stuck in a phone box and it's absolutely lashing down. And so there's the physical stuff. But then you got the mental stuff, because when you're walking, 12, 14, 15 hours a day, that is walking meditation, right? There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do. You are just you and you. You can't get away from yourself. You're with yourself 24/7. And stuff moves for you emotionally and kind of even spiritually. You start to see some stuff. And I go through all sorts of emotions, sometimes crying, sometimes laughter, sometimes you just be furious. Like out of absolutely no cause at all. You just have this kind of rage come out, like it had been in you for so long that you'd kept it down, that as it's moved, which is, essentially what meditation can do, it's had a chance to shift itself. And that can be very uncomfortable, because you're facing really deep emotions and you're stuck in the middle of a bamboo grove or on a mountain somewhere. That's hard. So emotionally it can be really quite depressing. But then there was always something to save you. Like with every real deep darkness, you come up the other side and there's light. So yeah, a number of levels, physical, mental, I would say.
Because there's one point towards the end, you realised that you didn't think you were going to finish the walk, did you?
No, I really didn't. I remember sitting for lunch. I managed to save some money for a little bento box. And I can even feel the seat under my thinking. I said to you at the start, if I can't do this, then we really are limited by time and money. And that is a very, very depressing idea for me, because it means that our parents were right. Money doesn't grow on trees. You shouldn't be starting a podcast. I shouldn't be writing. Yeah. And we're shafted. And I'm like, no. And I genuinely thought, I'm going to keep going, but this isn't going to work. There isn't a God, or whatever you want to call it. There isn't a big picture stuff. It is about school, college, university, kids die.
Yeah.
And that, I know I'm not selling the family life. I just realised that's lost all the family listeners, right? But you know what I mean? But it was, it's a sad reality. And I genuinely thought, this is not going to work. This is too hard. I can't do this. I'm exhausted. I'm physically exhausted, mentally. And there is no big picture life. It's just not good.
But you did it.
Yes. Thankfully, I was wrong.
So I was going to do it at the end, but there was, at the end of your book, you've got your 9 lessons, which is what you learnt on your walk. And I think we've pretty much summarised them. So before we go on to the next one, you had, number 1 was make a decision to begin. In your case, that was a pretty rapid decision, wasn't it? Yes. Just do it. And then you've got...
That's why the first chapter talks about the journey of 1,000 steps. I talk about that. Starts with a single step is wrong. It doesn't. It starts with a decision to do it.
Yeah. The intention to take that step.
Exactly.
And then you've got lesson 2, break down goals into small, achievable parts. That's something I've heard a lot, whether it be guys that are doing special forces selection or anything. It's always just the next step and the next step. It's
one step thing.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can do, right? There isn't another. You can't plan for the 5th step because you don't know if you're going to make it. A lot of these and I'm looking because I've got them here with me. But a lot of these temples, I called it the Buddhist humor or the Buddhist joke, where you do all this walking through the day and then they're on the top of a mountain. So you've got like 400 steps. I'm going, I can imagine some big jolly Buddha laughing watching this Wesley go, oh, look, you've done all this walking. Now you've got to come on. I think that's like Father Christmas, actually. Anyway, imagine all these steps. But at that point, you go, oh, man, I'm absolutely exhausted. I literally can only take 1 step at a time. And that's what Hajime would teach me. He would just go 1 step, Mata-san. I'm like, okay, all right. Because I'd always rush 1 step. And it is, you have only the 1 step. That's really the lesson of the 88.
I like that. Next one, learn what you need to learn to complete your goal. So for listeners, what do you mean there? So
let's do jiu-jitsu, right? Let's take what should we take that's quite complex? Passing the guard.
Yeah, so for people that don't know jiu-jitsu, 2 seconds. So if you ever watch MMA, guard is like a defensive position on the ground. The person's wrapped their legs around you. You'll probably struggle to do many offensive things from there. So you've got to get past their legs. It's one of the hardest positions to get out of, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something like that, you could practice let's use another thing that's not so niche as jiu-jitsu. Let's use tennis. Most people have seen tennis, right?
Tennis, yeah.
You could practice all day serving, right? So serving is one of those things that a student comes to you. They see on the TV. Serving is the big thing they see. They see the aces. And when they come to a lesson, they want to know how to serve aces, right? And it's the most complex skill in tennis. So you could practice all day, but unless you have the information of how to do it, you will reach a plateau. There's only a certain amount. You are going to need to get guidance, right? And without that guidance, you can keep training, you can keep drilling, you can keep hitting that serve. But unless actually someone instructs me on how to turn and roll my wrist over, which I didn't know, then you're just going to keep practicing, not rubbish, but you're going to keep making those same mistakes. So sometimes you just need someone to, like Hajime pitched up, gave me the essence of the hardest path. I could walk all day, but I wouldn't get to the levels until he taught me the Hanyashingo, how to use the beads and how to move. So, and that's that whole quote of, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I see that all the time. Just at the point where I've reached something, someone says something, you think, I haven't thought about that. Boom. And then you're on to the next level.
I like that. Right. 4, practice mindfulness meditation and learn to be calm. Now, I suppose we've spoken about that already. How would you recommend someone to get into that? Would you the mud technique start with? Just stare.
I would start for 90 days. Brain changes happen over 90 days, it seems. I would do the muddy jar technique for 90 days as an introduction. So you get used to sitting and watching, right? And once they've moved from the muddy jar technique, you do pretty much the same thing but without the muddy jar. You just set a timer. And it, like all things, just regular practice. I would make it super simple, regular training at certain times of the day. Not that it's not anything spiritual in that. It just creates a good habit.
Yeah.
When you get out of bed, you go and shower. Same with meditation. If you create something at certain times, you're more likely to do it, right? And then start with the muddy jar, and then you can just literally sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever.
Awesome. Universe requesting, ask for what you want.
Yeah.
So that's law of attraction, really, isn't it? What we've just been talking about.
It is, but there's something before that, though, right? Because a lot of people don't actually know what they want, right? And I think that isn't that they don't know. They're so used to not expecting that we can have what we want, they're actually almost given up on thinking about it. You have to practice rekindling the dreams, because it's really easy to get into that default grey zone where you just go, I just want to pay my bills off. Like that's the first thing. When I do the £1 million question, right? What would you do if I give you $1 million, the money, lots of money? What do I give you lots of money? Oh, I'll pay my bills. That is an indicator that people have forgotten what they really want. You wouldn't do that. If you had £1 million, the last thing you'd do. You wouldn't do those things. That's still based in our parents' safety valve, isn't it? Oh, yes, I'll pay the bills, get the bank manager. So, no, I would not. I'd be woohoo, I'd be off somewhere. And it takes practice to remember what you're after. That's why I admire people, let's say like you, who do your stuff. And Mike as well. He wanted something, went after it, he gets it. I love that. I love to. And another guy who does that, Craig Stanton, the Grappler's Gift, does that. Small business, just cracked on. Good. I love it. Love to see that.
Do you find surrounding yourself or not surrounding yourself with certain people helps?
Yeah.
It's almost awkward because sometimes I know my previous business, which I'm incorporating into another one now, it sounds weird, wasp nest removal. And my local town, the only national companies were ripping people off. So I started doing it, started taking off. And everyone's going, oh yeah, but it's only seasonal. It's like, yeah, and I'm seasonally going to make more money than I was before.
Exactly.
It's like, thanks for pointing that out. But it's like a lot of people always put their concerns or create concerns. It's almost like, I can't remember who said it. I'm very poor with these quotes, but it was like you put monkeys in a cage, and they're trained to pull the monkey that's trying to get out, pull him back down.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the other monkeys learn the behavior. And then eventually, say you rotate the monkeys out, you put new ones in, they learn the behavior from the rest of the
Yeah.
monkeys. And eventually, none of them realize why they're pulling the other one down, but they all just naturally do it because they all want to stay in the same level. But no one knows why they're doing it.
You know, it is I call it the dieter syndrome, right? So what happens is we all know what we know, and we have a false security there, right? So let's say someone in the group starts to stand up and wants to diet or change a habit. I pick diet. It could be anything, but because it's an easy one, right? Dieting. You will hear suddenly people go, "Oh, you look lovely. No, you look fine in that. I love you just the way you are." It seems quite selfless. It's not. It's just like you said with the monkey thing. What they're doing is once that person puts their head up above the kind of parapet, as it were, they're then threatened.
Yeah.
Because they have to face, because there is always fear in growth, right?
Yep.
And they're threatened that, oh, Mark, let's just keep it as it was. Let's keep it as it was, which is why creating your environment is really important. In shiatsu, a big part of doing shiatsu was self-development. It's called doing. And I remember Ray, our original instructor, he's an interesting guy actually, saying, when you start this course, and it was 5-year degree, right? Shiatsu. When you start this, your lives will be completely different, and your relationships might not be the same, because if your partner doesn't come with you, if you're going to grow, and they'll either grow with you or they won't. And it's one of the reasons I'm actually divorced originally, because you have to be prepared for that change, because when you move, some people will not come. And at that point, when you're growing, now I'm not saying disrespectfully move and leave people behind, but it will happen. You'll find that you just have to go to the next level. And that person, if they're not coming, you have to just go, we've done our time. And it is sad, but it is inevitable. And it's really important that I think people who want to grow surround themselves by people who think like them, want to grow, that are positive.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's true.
I just finished listening to David Goggins' audiobook, Can't Hurt Me. And he has a big thing about that in there. He's saying that people get threatened by success or someone trying to break the mold, break the norm. And they all try and pull you back in. He said even is in the Navy SEALs and, oh, David, you've got to come out for a drink with the guys. You're not being one of the team. And he's like, no, I want to be up at 6 a.m. running. I'm not going out for a drink. But everyone then, he gets outcast then. Things like that. But I suppose you just got to try and surround yourself with people that have similar goals and objectives.
And or be comfortable. Goggins talking about that, I've never been a drinker. And when my son was, he plays for Wasp now, but when he was going through his rugby career, there's all that whole drinking scene.
Yeah, it's massive in
rugby. Exactly. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to move my son's career forwards by pretending that I'm one of those dads. I could care less if you don't like me. The truth is, and this is where meditation helps, I can sit now. Now, I couldn't as a child, which is why meditation was really useful for me. I always wanted to fit in, right? But after meditation, when you start to just accept your experiences rather than fight them, I could sit with the fact that I'm now not part of the group, and that's fine. Because I'm not trying to resist it. I'm not trying to change it. It's like, cool, man, you do what you need to do. I do what I need to do. And then that's fine. That's another benefit of meditation, actually. But I remember that. People will try and pull you into the group or throw you out.
Yeah. Let go and relax.
Yeah. Linked to what we've just said.
Yeah.
When you first fight that, I want to fit in. Maybe I should go to the Christmas party. Maybe I should, actually, when you can just sit there and let that uncomfortable feeling come and not even try and fix it. Yeah. Just go, that's what it is. Just like the muddy water. I'm not trying to make the mud go down. I leave it. It will just settle. That, I think, is the ultimate secret. And in fact, I do that more and more in my martial arts now, is that you realize just letting it go more and more. Don't fight. Every time you fight, there's something to pin onto it. But when you relax, there's nothing to hold on to.
Embrace the journey, the ups and the downs.
Almost those three are almost the same. Because again, it's going to go up and down. But if you're always trying to resist the downs or embrace the ups, it's the same attachment. In Buddhism, it's the first law of grasping, right? That all suffering comes from grasping rather than just accepting. It's good today, it's bad tomorrow, good today. They're all just experiences. Be with it, deal with it, crack on.
Don't forget kindness and love, rule 8.
So I have the tendency to bash and crash my way through life, chase what I love, bash and crash, and leave metaphorical corpses along the way. And it's really easy to be someone who's positive and moves forward, but to forget actually just simple love and kindness it goes a long way. And that was really, I mean, it's obvious all through my life, to be fair, but it's really obvious on the journey because there's nothing else going on. So you see those lessons, they're clearer, right? Where just a kind word, like an orange given from a little old lady when you're absolutely starving, like the tumble dryer story, right? Yeah. Those things actually, when all's said and done, when you've sold however many books or you've got however many downgrades in martial arts, whatever, when it's all said and done, just having a really nice sit down with someone that you like or you love or whatever. I'm not even talking romantic love that you just feel for. That's it, right? That's in the end. That's what it's all about. But I haven't always felt like that. I can be a bit selfish.
Have to work on it.
yeah, exactly.
Trust that you have what it takes to be spectacular.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't think people realise how remarkable a human birth is. Just getting up and making it through the day with all the 100. So the liver, as we're sitting here doing this podcast, without us knowing, is doing over 500 different functions. That's amazing. You know what I mean? We're sitting on a planet that is hurtling through space. Hell, I mean, there are all those things. But because we have those kind of limited views, actually, we have everything in place. We are a part of that thing which created all this, right? Okay. So by design, our first atom, our DNA, is spectacular. And it's really easy to forget that and to get into that whole, it's not going. Listen, you've got as much chance as everybody else. You just got to walk the next step and the next one and the next one. No one's gifted. This talent thing is a nonsense. Some people come to the game with a little bit more practice. Talent is a nonsense. We all come with our different gifts and all of them can be improved. Have you read Carol Dweck's stuff on growth and fixed mindset?
No, I haven't, no.
Dr. Carol Dweck, and she's a kind of psychologist, clinical psychologist, and it's a bestseller, but you'll see it a lot in schools. But about that whole fixed mindset where talent is fixed. You're either a maths man or a sports man, or you are that thing, or you're arty or you're not. There's that view. And then there's the growth mindset, which actually you're nothing. Everything can be improved. My son's a classic example of this. He was under the fixed mindset, so-called not a maths man, right? I'm not a maths man. And I was like, no, that's actually not true. Right now, you suck at maths. That's absolutely true. I'm not going to patronize you by denying that. But if we do the drilling, we train, and he absolutely killed it in maths. In fact, it was maths that got him into Dulwich College. And it's the classic example of how what you teach people to believe, they will believe. So there's nothing is fixed or set in stone.
I think a lot of people as well look at things from the outside, and say we'll use rugby as an example, seeing as your son plays rugby. Johnny Wilkinson,
yes,
spectacular kicker. But if he missed a kick, he'd stay in that stadium until it's shut, kicking balls over the post, and people just see the famous drop goal, or that's what they see, but they don't see the hours and hours and hours of practice that went into it. You know?
I could not agree. I use that example because Johnny Wilkinson helped my son with his kicking when he was at Quins, Wasps, just at training and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. And have you read Wilkinson's bio?
I haven't, but I'm going to. It's on the list.
It's a really good, but you're absolutely right. So if you looked from the outside, again on this side of the fence, right, as the white belt, you look at the black belt, Johnny Wilkinson, you go, he's natural. Hang on a minute. Let's do the numbers. I call them mat hours. Every time I say to people, they're not getting something, have you done the mat hours? Have you actually been on the mat, right, or on the court or on the field and done the hours to get good. And after they finished bluffing and going, well, I sort of went on Monday, just give me the hours you were there. They go, no, I haven't. So there we go. That's why you suck. Which, by the way, which is fine. But don't pretend it's because there's not a fixed, you haven't got this fixed ability. It's nonsense. Just do the training.
Yeah, definitely. So we've covered the hardest path. Briefly, I think you're all going to have to go and get the book. It's a very good read. The next thing I wanted to ask you about was writing a book in general. I know it's something everyone wants to do. Where do you even start?
So, I said when I came off the hardest path, I had these lessons, right, which we've just spoken about. And then in Buddhism, it's called coming off the mountain. So I mentioned it briefly earlier that there's no point in lessons if they can't be translated into real speak, like high street speak, and affect you and me when we're back in the normal day, right? So a book is just another 88 temple pilgrimage. So we go back to the rules in the book and it starts at the beginning all over again. A circuitous pilgrimage is a metaphor, a representation, a symbol of anything you want to do in life. So, and because we're talking about books, so it starts right at lesson number 1. Make the decision to write the book. Step 2, take one step at a time, which could be one letter, one word, one sentence. Keep going. When you don't know stuff, look it up. Oh, my sentence structure is not very good. Look it up. And it literally, these lessons you can apply to anything that you want to do, because they're not pilgrimage lessons. They're not my lessons. They're just lessons that apply to anything you want to evolve. And it's the same advice I give to writers.
Did you write, I know the hardest path, do you just write it and then go out and try and get publishers on board, or do you talk to people first? How does it work?
So that's a good question, actually. So again, I started not knowing at all. I had writing experience, obviously through Jiu Jitsu style, and then writing for a magazine called Families Magazine. And again, my prerequisite, I just love writing. Okay, but I didn't know how to start writing a book. I started with all the questions. Would I love to do it? Yes. Do I know how to do it? Well, I can write stuff. I don't know if it'll be any good, but I can write stuff. And then I just crack on with it. And then I'm just learning on the way. And now, though, there are a number of ways of doing it. You can either self-publish, you can get your own stuff done on Amazon. I went through a publisher called Babawa Press, which is a part of Hay House. Right? It's a big American company. And now for this next book, I've got an agent. Because I'm writing, apart from teaching, I'm writing full-time. But no one has to do that. You can either self-publish or you can traditionally publish. The beauty, like with podcasts now, right? This wouldn't be happening 15 years ago. You would have had to be hired by the BBC, and I would have had to be interested enough to be asked to be on there. But now, loads of people can access media, and it's the same with writing. So as I say, I've done a little bit of both. Originally, as a martial artist, I did some self-published stuff. Now I did the Balboa Press, and now I have an agent. So I've done, and that's only just because I want those new experiences. But anyone can get a book out there.
How long did it take you to? How long did it take you to? I know it was a long gap between writing the hardest path and finishing the actual pilgrimage, but how long did it take you to write the book?
So this one, once I made that decision to go with it, it took me a year. But that wasn't actually full time because I was super busy teaching. So now I've got guys teaching for me, but I was super busy teaching. So it was I was kind of doing about 2-3 hours a day. And then it was but that was a year all the way to publish. It had gone
That's a good turnaround.
It's not bad. Once you crack on, there's nothing holding you. Most people don't get stuff done because they've never really decided to go with it. Once you're going to do it, right, you just get it done. There's no need to hang around. And it went through about 12 or 13 drafts. They're not rewrites. It probably went through, you kind of know where you're going. The first 3 to 4, you're really cleaning up. And then the little bits of changes that your editor makes and the publishers make and all that sort of stuff. So it probably went through about 12, 13 drafts, and about a year from starting to getting it out on the shelves.
How do you organise your time? Do you use a calendar? Do you use like an online calendar or something like that? Do you schedule when you're going to write?
I do. So my start of my day. So I'm at Rogers. Doing jiu-jitsu Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But each morning get up 5 past 5.
Roger Gracie, yeah.
and then I do my meditation for 45 minutes straight out of bed. Yeah.
Okay.
Shower.
45 minutes.
Train. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm back here home by about just after 9. Go and get 2 coffees. I watch Frasier while I play with the dog. And Sherry tells me about stuff. And then literally I come into the office, which is where I am now. And I do a thing called the Pomodoro technique. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's a good technique. And you cut your work into 4 sections, right? So they could be 25 minutes. I've now got up to 30 minutes. So you do 30 minutes focused. So we're talking about writing, focused writing, 5 minutes off, a definite break, right? 30 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 30, and you do it 4 times. So you've done 2 hours work. And because of the nature of the focus, and everything's then switched off, right? I'm just doing that. You get further and further into this state of deep focus. And there's more and more research that suggests it's the best way to study, the best way to kind of solve maths problems. And I learned it from a guy called Joshua Spragg, but also read a book about it this is a brilliant book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. It's a fantastic book. And it's how to of course, it manages your time, but more importantly, it manages your focus. Because it's really easy to waste 5 hours. You do a bit of writing, then you'll answer an email, and someone comes to pick up some geese. Whereas you go, don't talk to me. Like on the podcast now, everyone said, don't email me or do anything. I'm busy, right? For whatever, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I do the same with writing. But then when it's done, then it's done. Then I go out, and then we do whatever. Take the dog for a walk, usually.
So we'll talk about your next projects. I know you briefly mentioned it. So you've got the Buddhist millionaire. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, it's again, just another thing, that the laws from the hardest path, bringing them back, trying to make them useful. As I said earlier, most people you hear complain their lives about their job and work. Not everyone, but from my numbers, 7 out of 10. So I was like, well, why not doing what you love? I love if you gave me £1 million, I would be doing exactly what I'm doing now. I'd be doing things like this, talking with you. I'd be writing, and I wouldn't change my day, right? And I feel very good. I feel kind of blessed to have that. But that's not unique to me. Everyone has that option to do that. And so this book is investigating how to do that. It deals with our attachment to money, how we're stuck in a myth that actually is a bit of a facade. Here's the thing, if money was so central to our universe, which the way we operate suggests it is, right? Then if all the money in the world burnt tomorrow, if it was so central to our universe, the universe would disappear, and we know it wouldn't. We'd have no money, but we would all wake up tomorrow. We would have to find other ways of feeding ourselves, but we would go on, right? So it suggests there are other laws in place. So we start to undermine the money laws. Then we start to look at what religion, science, and philosophy originally started to do, which look at a life of meaning. Okay. And then the third part, the path of the Buddhist millionaire, is how do you put them together? How do you have a life of meaning, something you really love to do that gives back to the community, but also make it affordable? Because there is a bit of a myth as well, the whole kind of creative. I'm creative, I love what I'm doing, but I make £1 a year, right? So that's not good either, because we do have, there's plenty of books like that. Follow your dreams and be broke. No, we want both. I've got to pay my bills, but I want to love what I do. And it can happen.
A lot of that's about living within your means, though, isn't it? I see people going, like, I know you shouldn't set targets, but if you've got a ridiculous level of outgoings, it is going to be hard to probably finance those initially doing what you enjoy. Probably. So
here's a really good point of that. And Sherry, my wife, had said this about living within your means. And I would say that is certainly one tactic. So 100% you're right. And I do agree with that. But I think life is determined by what you ask of it. We said earlier, ask and it is given, universe requesting. Now, if you're asking, right, I want to do a job that I love that makes money, and I'll do it while living within my means, that will be supplied. But I also think it's true that you could say, I want to do what I love, I want to spend frivolously and still be successful. I believe that would happen too. I think we're only limited by the questions that we ask. And sometimes we're not brave enough to push the boundaries a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I genuinely believe you can have your cake and eat it.
Be great if you can.
Say that, yeah. I'll tell you when I'm bankrupt.
No.
Come back to me then.
At least you've had fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what's the time scale for the Buddhist Millionaire? Have you got a time scale?
So I've got to see, after this, I've got to put my next 3 chapters to my agent. And then once you're dealing with bigger publishing houses, it's a bit out of your control then, because you then go through, so I go through my editor, then my agent, then their editor. Okay. It's just another cog in the wheel, really. So I'm hoping before the end of this year. But then what they also do when they release it, they have to schedule. It's like releasing a film. They have to schedule it against other films and books, etc., etc. So hopefully by the end of this year, fingers crossed.
That'd be cool. Right. So I warned you I was going to ask you these questions towards the end.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you had a chance, but your favourite quote?
Now, I actually prepared this. It's not a one-off quote, and I'm going to read it. Okay. This is from my musty 1950s copy of the Scottish Himalayan Expedition by W.H. Murray, right? And I'm going to read this. Where is it? Right. Okay. This. If you hear only one bit of this podcast, it's got to be this, right? Ready? So it says, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffective. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issue from the decision, raising one's favour, all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. That for me is that is it. That was the 88 summed up in that book. When you make a decision, stuff serves you. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it. I've seen people around me. I've seen it in them. It works. I know that wasn't a small quote, but that's it.
Oh, I like it. I didn't set a word limit. Who's your biggest inspiration?
So I was talking, when you messaged, I was talking to Sherry. I have a load of inspirations, actually. But I would probably say, if I would love to be more like someone, I would have to say the Dalai Lama. What I love about the Dalai Lama is how he manages to stay kind of calm and peaceful and compassionate even under pressure. That's something I have not mastered at all. My instinct when cornered is to fight, right? When I would love to have that so the Dalai Lama, and of course Nelson Mandela and Bishop Desmond Tutu.
Oh, okay, they're good ones.
Yeah.
One of our previous guests actually has done a bit of work with Desmond Tutu. So
really?
Yeah. Final one was your favorite book. You can't say your own.
Well, that's that. So I read a ton of fiction, more non-fiction, actually. I don't read much fiction, but I'm going to pick my book from fiction from an author called Gabriela Garcia Marquez, and it's called Love in a Time of Cholera. And the reason I love it is a Colombian writer. He's dead now, but the reason I love it is that it's a pretty... he says the most beautiful things about nothing at all. So the story's not that great, but the way he writes about it, I love the skill of having something relatively mundane that you write about that draws the reader in. Whereas if I was to sell you the story, you'd be like, well, yeah, whatever. But it's the way he moves. I mean, that's pure poetry. The guy is an absolute legend. So yeah, I love that one.
I'll try and link that in. So I think we'll wrap it up now, Matt. If that's okay with you. I think it's been an hour and a half, something like that. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find you online?
I'm on my website. So I've got 2 websites. I've got the hardestpath.com, and then my author website is mattjardineauthor.com. Yeah, so the hardestpath.com or mattjardineauthor.com.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, and thank you once again to Matt for coming on. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and family. I'd also like to mention that Tim Crockett, a previous guest, ex-British Special Forces, is currently on the home stretch of his solo Atlantic row. He's faced some very bad conditions. Lots of things went wrong, but he's still going. If you could head over to Tame the Kraken and give him any donation, I'm sure it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.